Welcome back to the Now Morning Show, everyone. I am Kimberly D'Souza. It is the 28th day of December, which means that we are 3 days away from the new year. Can you believe it? We're almost into 2022. Now, when we think about the new year, we always think about New Year resolutions. And with me, I have somebody who can help keep us on track. Good morning, Mr. Anthony Watkins.
Good morning.
How are you today?
I am fine, and it's a pleasure to be here.
Of course. So thank you so much for joining us. So when we think about, the new year and what we want to achieve, we always think about those New Year resolutions and how we can keep on track with that. Can you give us some tips about how we can stay on track with our New Year resolutions?
Okay. Let me, in a sense, introduce the notion of how we might stay on track.
Yeah.
By considering and putting on the table the fact that we typically have tried to organize time in our heads around events. So we have watches and we talk about hours and days and minutes. But we have anniversaries, birthdays, the end of the year, the beginning of a new year. There are other kinds of times in the year. The moon phases represent certain things, the seasons, for example. And what happens is that for whatever reason, some people will get to a particular event or time in their life and decide that it's a time for reflection and for making some kind of change. Now, that's a nice, easy thing to say. It sounds pleasant, and lots of people do it. The idea, though, is that people may tend to make these decisions on the basis of activity. Okay, so that's one piece that I would want to deal with. So I'm going to exercise 3 times a week. Yes, but what are you hoping to achieve by exercising 3 times a week? So sometimes we move from activity and we set a goal and set a target, which is useful because you want to know if you exercise 3 times a week, something is going to happen. You're going to lose some weight, or you'll be able to lift something or perform some physical task. But even that, over time, gets a little boring, could get a little burdensome and a little repetitive. So what I'd suggest, first of all, is that people ask themselves, why do you want to do this? What's the reason? Is there some overarching reason about having a healthy lifestyle, being able to live longer, being there for your family, being in a healthy state, being in a balanced, happy state as you live? And a lot of times people may go for the activity and the goal end of the resolution, but not ask themselves why. So I may want to save money this year. And when I get to a particular point, I say, okay, so I've saved some money. But then what? Why am I saving this money? Is it to provide a better home for my family? Is it to create life opportunities for my children? And those things which are the more purposeful, meaningful things tend to sustain us over the long haul as opposed to just the activity.
Now, Mr. Watkins, what I'm hearing is because you have, for example, you have 32 years in organizational development. You also have your own company, Odyssey Consultant Inc. Limited. So you have been in the game for a long time and you know a lot about this. But what I'm hearing is it that everybody needs a life coach depending on what stage of their life they're at?
Well, not necessarily that everybody needs a life coach, but certainly, I mean, some people can benefit from some kind of feedback, some kind of support along the way. Now, we have to be careful about the kind of support that we access. There's a particular ad on television now that just speaks to, take up golf if you're having a problem, that kind of thing. You want to be sure, for example, that a coach teaches you the right things, so that the question of life coaching is something that needs to be undertaken carefully and thoughtfully as to what kind of support you need in the first place, and then to select a coach who will be able to do that kind of thing for you. Some coaching arrangements are pretty formal, and some will tend to be more casual. The more casual ones, you want to ask yourself, is the person really organized enough and studied and knowledgeable and skilled enough to be able to support you through what you have to accomplish?
All right, so I'm going to use myself as a guinea pig. So I'm a 30-year-old young woman. I haven't started a family as yet, but obviously I want to go in that route. What kind of life coach you think would be good for me if it is I want to keep on my career track, if it is I want to start building my investment portfolio? What kind of support you think I need at this stage in my life? Okay,
well, interestingly, as you talk about your age being sort of at the beginning of the 30s, you would want someone who understands the business of or the issue of life stages. Because, we don't just go from childhood to adulthood and that's it. Even as we go into adulthood, there's early adulthood, middle adulthood, and then you go into what we call midolescence, the middle years, and then into old age, and eventually into what we call the twilight years, when you're about to leave. So what you want is somebody who will understand that and understand what are the dynamics of the 30s. Interestingly, you know, the Bible speaks about people living 70. And therefore 35 is half time. And what we notice, a lot of the research indicates that in the mid-30s, people have some very deep questions that emerge for them. And it's, I describe it as saying that, you know, the referee upstairs blows the whistle and says, listen, half time.
Half time, yes.
How did you play your first half?
Yes.
And is that how you're going to play your second half? And a lot of deep searching questions. Am I in the right relationship? Should I stay in this job? What should I do? You know, how am I going to live the second half and the rest of my life? So you want somebody who understands that type of dynamic. You know, the research indicates actually that most significant life changes, divorces, career changes, migration, things like that, happen when people are in their mid to late 30s. That's the statistical frequency. And it means, therefore, that there are questions that people need to be guided to examine for themselves. The life coach is not going to be able to do that for you, but they can walk with you as you explore and examine these issues. So I think that would be a critical one. The other piece, of course, is someone who understands the question of purpose, life purpose, and who can help you to define what would be something meaningful and purposeful for your life. And then out of that, you begin to set some specific targets, whether they're financial, familial, or whatever.
And so if I do want to take you up on the offer and say I want to hire a life coach for my life, are these affordable? Like, what are the price ranges for such information?
Well, I couldn't tell you what the price ranges are because they do vary.
They vary, yes.
But what it would mean is that you have to make a commitment that this is something that you want to do and that you are prepared to invest in yourself. We invest in academic pursuits. We invest in physical pursuits. We pay the gym every month. There are other investments that we make. And you then have to ask yourself, is managing my life and getting a framework that is meaningful and thoughtful and organized sufficiently important for me? I would say that it is, you know, but everybody may not feel that way.
Now, so we're talking about life coaching, and obviously, again, you would have been in the game for 32 years, you know this, but you would not have done it during a pandemic. Does the pandemic change the dynamic of coaching someone?
Yeah, I think the pandemic actually helps, you know, because this has been a difficult time for people, and people have had a lot more time alone. They've had a lot more time without the distractions of the liming and the partying and going all over the place. And the depth and impact of the pandemic has been so grave that a lot of people have gone into some deeply reflective states. But what is this life really all about? What am I doing with myself? What if? What is my relationship to people? So I think the pandemic has shaken a lot of people, and to have them question what they have been doing with their lives, and then to take the time now to reflect. I hear people wanting to go back to normalcy, you know, whether it's the new normal or the old
whatever
normal.
That looks like,
whatever
yes.
that looks like.
Yes, yes.
But people want to go back there.
Right.
And I don't know that it's ever going to be the same way. I suspect that it is not. But it is then, how do I negotiate my time? So we talked about, for example, you know, events and certain things around which people do this reflection. Well, there are world events like this.
Yes.
Which really put people in that place. And I think it's a powerful opportunity if our minds, if our thought patterns are shaken a little bit, to really ask ourselves, what kind of family do I want to have? What's like my contribution that I want to make to my community? How do I deal with people who have been negatively affected by this? And deal with more in-depth relational kinds of issues as opposed to, where's the next line? Okay, we haven't Carnival next year.
Yes.
I mean, those are very superficial things in a time like this. So in that sense, I think it would have been useful to shake some people up.
Now, Mr. Watkins, your company, the Odyssey Consultant Inc.
Yes.
Now, can we reach out to you to get life coaching services?
All right, what we will do now, my background is in psychology, behavioral sciences, and I had done a lot of that over time, whether as a guidance officer working in, you know, correctional services, criminal justice, etc. So I have done quite a bit of that. I am sort of moving into the other end of my career phase.
Into the twilight?
You know,
Dare I say twilight?
No. I'm not going to twilight yet. No, still bright sunshine. All right. But what we do is that we have expanded our network of people, and we do have a number of people who are in the Odyssey network, to whom we could actually refer people and who do excellent work. Some of them provide EAP services. Some work in the area of mindfulness. Some are more sort of career and work coaches and business coaches and that type of thing. But we do have a range of things. So if you do call us, we will be able to, in a sense, do a preliminary assessment of what your specific needs might be and then make the appropriate referral. The final choice for the person would be to say yay or nay and decide if they want to go with the person that we would have recommended.
And I guess, how exactly will it work? Is it that this person is going to call me every day and say, are you on track to go to the gym like you promised? Are you on track to do this? Like, how is it going to work out?
Well, it depends really on the maturity of the individual who is seeking the coaching. If there's a high level of personal responsibility, it might be that the arrangement is, okay, so you do this and you let me know what you've done and how you're doing. The coach may make the assessment that, listen, that might work, but maybe I need to call you every now and then, or some blend of the two. So it's almost like in the workplace, if you have to delegate, you're not sure that you want to be looking at the person all the time. You could tell them to report to you, but you also want to make sure that they're on track. That is a very useful discussion at the beginning of a life coaching experience, that you really have to ask yourself, what's our frequency? Who's going to take responsibility for it? Is it on a fixed schedule or is it on an as-needed basis? And those things ought to be discussed. If the client doesn't raise that, a professional coach will raise those issues.
I have a question.
Sure.
Is there a difference between a life coach and a mentor?
Yes. Coaching tends to be more specific in terms of a particular set of skills, targets, competencies, and deliverables. Mentoring tends to be a broader kind of relationship that really is supportive of a guide, I want to say a counselor, but I don't want to say a counselor.
Somebody who's been there.
Yeah.
Somebody who has been there, somebody who could just exchange stories with you, life experiences. Coaching tends to be a little more specific with more targets, deliverables, and outputs.
And is there a required age to be considered a life coach, or you can? I see some people who are 20-something years old and saying that they're life coaches, but they have barely lived a life
want to
yet.
give everybody,
I'm always curious about that.
Yes.
Well, there's a certain kind of experience that they will not be able to bring to the relationship because they may have learned the techniques of life coaching, but may not really have the depth of experience, the stories, and some of the insights to bring. But I would not want to say that a young coach is necessarily not someone who can add value to someone's life. In fact, the converse is also true. There are some old coaches, well.
You left that sentence hanging right there, Mr. Watkins.
This thing about, age and wisdom is not always
It's not necessarily
100%.
true. Yes, not always true. I mean, final question, Mr. Watkins. Then what does success look like?
Oh, someone asked me that question the other day, and I said success looks like peace. That's what it feels like
What does it look like?
Well, what does it look like? How we decide to live our lives is important. What's the difference that I want to make with my life? Do I want to expand, for example, like in terms of my company, do I want to expand it and have branches across the region and so on? Well, I don't. My thing is that I need to work in a particular kind of space and have a particular kind of impact on people's lives. And for me, that is where success will come in terms of career. What will success look like in terms of my health? What will success look like in terms of financial, stability? Do I want to be rolling in money and filthy rich? I don't. But do I want to have sufficient money to take me through and have an enjoyable life? So in a lot of ways, defining what success is, what those targets are, people may have a lot of those things. There's the other deep issue of one's spiritual satisfaction and growth. I may have a lot of things, but there may be an emptiness spiritually inside of me. Is that something that I want to say, listen, I really need to target this spiritual dimension of who and what I am, and then all other things will be added onto me. seek ye first,
And finally, Mr. Watkins, anything you want to add or tell our viewers before we close?
Yes, I mean, I would say that in terms of resolutions, you don't want to set something that is too easy or too difficult. Too easy, you don't put effort in. Too difficult, you give up. At the same time, as we go about resolutions, we have to understand the issue of change and our humanness. Change is not easy, but you want to set a target that if you do a little bit, you see a little bit of progress there, and if that big purpose thing that we talked about, that meaningfulness issue is there, it keeps you going. What you don't want to do is to, as I say, set something that's so difficult that you decide you want to give up. It's accept your humanness. You're going to slip, you're going to stumble every now and then. But if that big picture is powerful enough, desirable enough, inspirational enough, you are going to keep going because there's some state that you want to arrive at in your life.
Thank you so much, Mr. Watkins. Thank
You're
you so much.
very
That was the CEO of Odyssey Consultant,
Yes.
Inc. And let me also tell the viewers that you are a National Award winner, the Public Service Medal of Merit Gold in 2019.
Yes,
So
that's
thank you so
correct.
much for joining
Okay.
us.
Thank you.